Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of NCompass Live. I am your host, Krista Porter, here at the Nebraska Library Commission. NCompass Live is the Commission's weekly webinar series where we cover a variety of topics that may be of interest to libraries. We broadcast the show live every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time. But if you're unable to join us on Wednesdays, that's fine. We do record the show as we are doing today, and it will be available for you later to watch at your convenience. And I will show you at the end of today's show where you can find all of our show archives. Both the live show and the recordings are free and open to anyone to watch. So please do share with your friends, family, neighbors, colleagues, anyone you think might be interested in any of the topics we have on NCompass Live. For those of you not from Nebraska, the Nebraska Library Commission is the state agency for libraries. So we are similar to your whatever state library. So we provide training and consulting and grants and database consortiums to all types of libraries in the state. So you will find shows on NCompass Live for all types of libraries, public, academic, K-12, corrections, museums, historical societies, et cetera, et cetera. Really, our only criteria is that it's something to do with libraries. We bring in guest speakers from across the country, across Nebraska and across the country to speak on NCompass Live sometimes, but we also have Nebraska Library Commission staff that do presentations for us. And that is what we have today. Today is the last Wednesday of the month. So that means it is Pretty Sweet Tech Day. Yay. Pretty Sweet Tech is Amanda Sweet is with us today. Good morning, Amanda.
Good morning.
And she is our technology innovation librarian here at the Nebraska Library Commission. And the last Wednesday of every month, she comes on and does a presentation that is something techie related. We have shows other times that are tech as well. But you can always depend on almost every last Wednesday of a month, Amanda will be here to talk about something. And she today is going to talk about last month. She attended, as she does regularly, the Computers in Libraries Conference in DC nearby.
DC adjacent. It's in Arlington.
Yes.
Yep.
And she's going to tell us about all of the cool things that are happening in the tech world at Computers in Libraries. Yep. So I'll just hand it over to you, Amanda. Tell us about everything you saw. Well, not everything, that would be a lot, but yeah, I don't know if we have enough time for that. All the great,
with it. Yeah. And so this year, I started out actually with my little plane adventures because when I was flying into DC, there were tornadoes and there were storms.
Oh my God.
So I was one of the many of them that got caught in the airport. So I actually wound up missing the workshop I was supposed to be giving because my plane was circling overhead and poor Brian was sitting on the in the room just watching the plane tracker just circle. We both thought I'd get there on time, but weather wasn't having it. So that was fun.
Well, I hope
I got there in time to do games and gadgets though, so that was good. I call that a win.
Yeah.
I wasn't the only one who got caught up in the
airport
debacle.
Crazy. Yeah.
Unfortunately, some of the speakers weren't able to make it, and there was a lot of reshuffling going on. But it happened. We went with it.
You can't control the weather, so you just have to go with it. Go with the flow.
Pretty much. Circling. So this year I plucked out a little handful of trends and themes. The AI automation one is not going to be surprising. I'm sure everyone expected to see that one on there. But last year at Computers and Libraries, this was actually right around the time that we all thought that IMLS, we had no idea what was happening with IMLS.
Right.
So at last year's CIL, that coincided exactly with when that first announcement came out.
the first announcement that it was going to be supposedly shut down entirely, and everyone was fired, and just luckily that has not happened, and 2 court cases have said nope, not legal, not happening. IMLS is in place and has its full budget as dictated, as appropriated by Congress. However, of course, as usual, in the current federal budget proposed, it does only have as was done last year, just a $6 million to close down IMLS.
Yeah.
Again, it will be fought, and the court cases already said no. So, yeah.
Pretty much. And so there is that aspect of it where we've kind of been dealing with now that we know that the funding is back in place, there were still quite a few services that went under in the interval.
Unfortunately, yes. Things closed down. Libraries canceled services and programs out totally because they didn't have the funding. It was a horrible, horrible thing to do to libraries.
And so now a lot of this one was about, now we tentatively have these funds and resources back, but the funds and resources we did get back are different. So, so if anyone has actually looked at some of the, when I glanced through the Laura Bush Award, and I had applied for that one previously, but in this year's cycle, the type of projects that can be funded changed completely. So I encourage you to kind of go through and read through not just the NOFO in some of these new grants, but take a really close look at the narrative of the grant before the actual NOFO is stated. Because some parts of the new grant system look similar, but when you look at the narrative about which types of projects are now covered under that umbrella, in some cases, I haven't looked at all of them, but potentially most cases, what can be funded under those new grants at the federal level are drastically different. So some of the conversation at CIL has been, what does this new funding actually look like? Is this new funding style here to stay, or is it going to change over time? And will there be new court cases that come in and say, okay, this is what it looked like now, but that's not what it's supposed to be looking like. So is it going to change again? So there has been quite a bit of conversation around that. And then the whole, will this fight for IMLS be won again in 2027, 2028, 2029?
It's going to be an annual battle, I assume. Yes, an annual fight, yes.
And so that was kind of one of the underlying trends that happened. And then as that happened, the little piece of the pie of funding that's going toward libraries is shifting and sliding. So some libraries have been looking at what can we do because we don't have as much, but we still are being asked to do a lot to prove the value of libraries. And we need to be able to say that libraries are doing all this amazing stuff while budgets are being cut too. And budgets being cut not just at the federal level, but some counties, municipalities, states, all of them have been cutting, shifting, sliding, reducing budget.
Oh yeah, here at the Library Commission, we've had our budget cut. Yes.
Yeah.
Which then trickles down to the libraries. And, well, it may. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. It may affect some of the things we can do. We're still working that out, as our state budget is just wrapped up just a week or so ago. Someone did ask a question because they didn't understand what you had said, that the NOFO, that's the notice. It's an notice of funding opportunity, correct? That's what that
They
acronym is.
should actually say what the acronym actually stands for, but I've stared at NOFO so much lately that, you know.
Yeah, it's just always that's the specific document when lots of grants use it, but the federal ones always have that, and that's where all the info, everything you need to know about what this grant is for, what you need to do, the requirements, how to apply. But definitely read them. I agree, especially with the ones from IMLS. What you can and cannot do in a grant is changed. And
Drastically. Yeah.
drastically and understandably, it will be things as we all have seen in the current government, anti-DEI, all those kind of things. It is saying you cannot do things like that. We'll mention that kinds of things. So, and I know there are some people who have read that, some libraries, and have said, I'm not applying for any IMLS, any federal grants, because of those, the changes to the descriptions of them and what they will and will not allow us to do, or how they present what these grants are supposed to be for. So definitely read them and decide how that would affect any work you may want to do with those grants.
And it's been more difficult to find the right contact person because sometimes there is no contact person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did say IMLS stays in place, staff are there, but they did cut staff. And they do not have all their staff back. They are not back up to full, even though the 2 court cases said, no, you can't close them down, no, you can't cut them, no, you can't take away their budget. They get their full budget. They have not brought back as many people as they had before. No, it is a struggle. So it's going to be a struggle to deal with getting those grants because they are short-staffed. And also I'm assuming on their side too, trying to learn how to navigate these new grants, the new descriptions of the grants that have changed from what they've been for decades. I don't even know how long, but we've never had this kind of a change before to what you could or couldn't do with federal grants. But this is only IMLS, only federal grants. There's lots of other grants out there. It's not like we're, so you might have to start looking outside the box a little and looking for other things.
And that is another one of the trends that popped up, is seeking alternative funding, because there's more than one way to do it.
Oh, yeah.
And so that also feeds into the next trend, which is because libraries are being asked to do more with less, more of them are looking at an ecosystem model and building partnerships. And that's not really a new trend. That's just kind of like a new way at looking at an old trend. And it's more, the ecosystem trend is getting to be more popular because the field of ecosystems is growing. And I'm an ecosystem junkie, so I'm looking at it. And so that's one way that libraries are kind of being able to do more with what they have and leverage and build resources as a collaborative instead of as an individual organization or as a region. And when you start digging into this, almost inevitably you find out that there's usually a group that's doing what you want. You just need to find them. And it's a whole thing. So then the next one is AI and automation can actually help you do more with less if you do it the right way. And there's also AI and automation that can be threatening library jobs. So it's kind of like a double-sided, double-edged sword, two-sided coin, whatever metaphor you like, you can use it. And so then the last one is, now that all this change is happening, CIL always has a leadership and management track. So I always toss in a little trend about how the leadership style is changing and how leadership management is starting to adapt and shift with all of this. And one slide that I did forget to put in here, of course, is the link that actually goes over to Computers and Libraries website. So, Krista, I don't know if you'd mind grabbing the CIL website and the link over to sessions.
It's in the show description too. Let's see here.
Actually, I wasn't super worried about it because I knew it was linked in the description, but it gets there. So the first one we kind of already touched on a little bit, which was, I already went over some of the changes in federal funding, so I'm going to skip some of that. But the alternative funding is more libraries have been shifting over to local philanthropists and starting to embed themselves in other ecosystems. For example, the Omaha and Nebraska area has a workforce development ecosystem, and they also have alternative funding resources so that libraries can actually get embedded into that system. And some of the new Omaha public resources, they are also working in tandem with that workforce dev system. And DoSpace has been kind of adjacent to workforce development, but more on the K through 12 side than on the actual business development side. But they were kind of straddling the two worlds for a while. And I know that several libraries across the state and across the nation, they already do quite a bit with workforce development, helping with
Mm-hmm.
job searches, helping
Yeah.
collaborate with the job centers and all this different stuff. But not all of the libraries are tapping into that as a funding source. So it's kind of rebuilding and reshaping some of those collaborations and starting to build those partnerships now so that when the grant cycles start to ramp up more, you already have those collaborations in place and the partnerships in place. And it'll be easier to actually get that grant later. So, some of like the on ramping things I'll talk about in the ecosystem and collaboration section, but that was just one of the many alternative funding sources. And corporations are also starting to generate more different funding sources, but that also comes with a double-edged sword too, because some of like the Googles and the Metas of the world, they will provide access to their tools or provide access to digital literacy training, but some of them will lock it down only to their tool set. So they'll say if you use Google tools, you can use this funding. But that also means that you're basically collaborating with Google to say, we're encouraging people to use Google and Google only. And then are we accidentally creating a monopoly? Are we accidentally doing whatever? When libraries are supposed to be kind of tool agnostic because people can use pretty much any tool they want to solve a problem. But now, if you only get the funding to use a specific tool, are you helping or hurting the community because you're only teaching them to do one thing? And then, so I found out that Google also has two different wings. So they have the applied digital skills, which is locked down to their tool set, but Google also has a philanthropic wing that will allow for digital skill and digital literacy, or whatever phrasing your library is currently using to do digital skill training and access. But the philanthropic wing does not lock it down to a specific technology tool or tech stack. So the Google philanthropic side will give you funding even if you want to go use Microsoft or if you want to use whatever you want to use. But it just kind of, you have to be careful with the fine print there. And I haven't looked at every single different organization to say, I don't know offhand whether Microsoft will only let you use Microsoft tools or if Microsoft also has a philanthropic wing that says you can use anything. So there's also other corporations that are local to you that might be willing to help with building some of this stuff out and building out the digital skill training, building out all this different stuff. And there were also some tracks about, one of them was my track, which was what does the full landscape of digital literacy training actually look like? Because now libraries are being asked to go from helping people figure out how to get connected on a computer, helping people get access to the internet, helping people do all of this different stuff. And now the broadband side of this is also changing. So the type of internet connectivity is changing. So there used to be the focus on fiber, but now it's shifting over more to satellite-based internet, or it might be shifting over to an alternative option. And satellite doesn't always work for everything everywhere. But fiber is also expensive to lay down in rural areas. because they call it the last mile in some places. And the last mile also means that it's more expensive to lay that fiber and get connectivity to far-flung farms or far-flung houses or far-flung communities. So they look to satellite, but that doesn't always work with the technology as it is right now. But the technology is still evolving.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a whole big thing that the NDIA, which is another acronym that is completely lost to me and what it actually stands for, my acronym soup right now. I do actually know what it stands for, but it's gone right now. But they have a digital navigator toolkit. And the digital navigator toolkit.
The National Digital Inclusion Alliance.
Thank you.
Yes.
So they worked with World Education. So I was on the committee board team, whatever they called it, back in 2018 when World Education was making the first draft of the Digital Navigator toolkit. And that toolkit has evolved over time from roughly 2018 over to now to be able to help people navigate basic skill training, what digital literacy is, and the different models for digital skill training. So when people are trying to do more with less, that is one of the ways that they've started to do it, is building out these collaboratives and models to be able to reach people in new and different ways. So one of the ways that this has happened is, instead of asking libraries to work on an individual library by library basis to be able to build up programs that say, we're going to build a training program that will help our libraries get trained to be able to get people started on a computer and to be able to learn Excel and to be able to do job skill training. We're going to focus on those 3 different areas, and then when people come into the library, we can help with those. But the people in our communities need help with more than those 3 areas. So then we start building a regional model that says, okay, we have our library here that does those 3 areas, but now we're going to embed another navigator in the local workforce group, and they're going to work on these 3 areas. Now the community center is going to work on these 3 other areas, and then we start embedding a different navigator in each different little community space so that across all of them, the community has access to the actual resources and skills that they need. And so that can be tech skills for parents, it can be tech skills for older adults, it can be tech skills for any number of different people or things. And so this is how there's been and there's also some of the rural areas that may not be able to, they don't have enough people coming into the library or a single organization to be able to justify getting a full-time navigator, but they do have enough people that need the service across a region. So then they get a navigator for the region, or they get 5 navigators for the region, and then that navigator gets sent out to do to facilitate a STEM and STEAM activity over in one library one day, and then the next day they're over doing job skill training, or they'll do a Zoom-based training for job applications, or they're starting to build different models like that. So that's one example of how that same model has been used to solve different problems, but the NDI is not the first, last, or only one who's ever going to do that. They've also, and they basically just repackaged the same term and same style of things that libraries and other groups have been doing for decades.
Yeah, a lot of this sounds familiar, and they're trying to rebrand to get people's attention, which is important. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And if their brand gets people to do it, I don't care. But I also don't want people to think that this is the first time that it's ever happened. Like, if you've ever had a one-to-one tech training, or if you've ever had like an Excel or Microsoft Word class, you've kind of gotten the baseline of what a navigator actually does. Mm-hmm. Or if you have most libraries, I won't say most of them, but a good number of them, you can walk into a library and they'll help you learn, like use your tablet, or they'll help you figure out how to do all this different stuff.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, that's what a digital navigator does. They just added a framework and a rhyme and a reason to the things that we've already been doing, which is cool. And
Yeah.
it'll help more people do it. So that's one of the different ways that this starts to all kind of flow together, is that we don't know what the future actually holds, but we can start doing more with less by working together to do it. And that is where the ecosystem partnership actually started to come into play. And another way that the ecosystem partnership has been solving this is looping back over to say that we have a whole group of libraries that need to become ADA compliant. And this is a new. Do you remember when the new, like the old ADA compliance deadline was? I know they just extended it to
It
2027.
was just this month. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it depends on your population served.
Yeah.
For communities that were 50,000 population served or more, it was this month. But and for ones that were, if you were 50,000, less than 50,000 population served, you had another year. So it was April 2027. But they bumped everything a year out now. So now it is 2027 for larger communities, and then 2028 for smaller, with that 50,000 cutoff. I don't know if the exact date was the 24th or something. I forget the exact date, but it was this month, April. Yeah.
And so ADA web compliance is not as easy as it seems, because this would actually be a prime example for how libraries and other groups can come together to be able to build learning communities, to be able to say, this is what ADA compliance should look like. And then these are the tools that we've tested that work. And these are the external vendors that we've used that work. And these are the tools, techniques, resources and best practices that we're using, and then start working with about 20, 30, 40, 50 libraries together to be able to tackle this problem, instead of trying to work in silos and do it each individually, or try to bounce around trying to figure out what works, because that doesn't always go so well.
All right, I found the exact dates, and I was right. It was supposed to be, okay, with a total population of 50,000 or more, was April 24th, 2026, and that has been changed. So 50,000 or more, it was April 24th, 2026. Now it is April 26th, 2027. I assume it's another Friday. And for entities with a total population of less than 50,000, it was going to be April 26, 2027. It is now April 26, 2028.
And the fun part is, the best and easiest way to do that is by going through an external vendor who's going to review through and actually update it and do everything for you. Or they'll do training so that your in-house staff would be able to learn ADA best practices and just maintain and update what the consultant or whoever you work with actually does. So that's one of the most effective ways to do it. But unfortunately, because of those funding changes, and counties, cities, states everywhere is reducing or shifting, sliding the budget, that's not always feasible.
And I know Andrew Sherm here at the Nebraska Library Commission, he's our IT person who, in my department, library development, who helps our libraries with their technology, goes out to them as well. He'll come and do a tech review for you, help install PCs, whatever. And he is doing a presentation about ADA compliance, which now he has to update. I think it's at next month's Southeast Library System training. But anyway, he's doing a session at one of our regional systems. And then I will be having him come on NCompass Live to redo that as well. So date to be determined yet, but we will have a presentation coming up specifically all about that, that Sherm plans on doing as well.
And I can do one for WordPress and for, yeah. So
yeah, definitely. If we need things that are specific for, I know we're having the whole website's changing thing here in Nebraska at the Library Commission for the libraries.
Yeah.
And we are.
And there's also only one.
Compliance is very much on everyone's mind to keep it
Yeah. And there's also only one of me and one of Sherm. So if every single library asked us to do it, that's not
a lot.
Gonna, So that is also where when a lot of different libraries face the same problem, that is actually where the consortium ecosystem, whatever it may be, comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
Like Nebraska's already been doing it with Biblionics and with the Pioneer Consortium.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so that is a bunch of libraries that got together to be able to get the catalog service for lower cost rate and to be able to build a learning community to be able to use and leverage that resource over time. And so then working together to solve similar problems like that. But now there's new and different and better techniques to be able to help make that happen instead of some of like the old hodgepodge ways from back when this all first started going. And so that's pretty much what's happened in the ecosystem land. And depending on who you ask, if you call a consortium an ecosystem, people are going to give you the side eye. But I don't really care if you call a consortium an ecosystem or an ecosystem a consortium. It's just people working together to solve a problem. But if you talk to an ecosystem or a network professional, they're going to look at you funny. So just know that. So that is more about, and that also bleeds into the open source resource repositories, which is you have all these different libraries that are trying to tackle artificial intelligence and tackle digital skill resources and tackle all of these different things. So there are more, like the example here is instead of having all these different individual libraries put the stuff together, start putting it all in one spot. And then each library doesn't have to keep doing the same thing over and over. This is the Tech Ready platform that I put together, and I now have to update it because GCF Global actually just shifted over to Learn Free. So all of their old URLs are shifting and sliding. But I haven't done that yet because Learn Free has not finished their update process yet. So if I were to update it now, it won't actually, it's going to change again.
It still might change again.
Yeah. And I'm also finding alternative sources that do the same thing because some of the old tutorials aren't the same anymore. And some of them are, I don't know, review to be determined. But so it's more, how can we work together to put this all in one spot instead of making all the libraries do it themselves? Because it won't happen because no one has time. And so this is one of the digital skill training ones, and these are the emerging tech ones that I just started putting I got asked the question so dang many times that I just started putting it all in one spot. And it's just easier that way. So this is an example of kind of an open repository. But this also, again, is not the only example of an open repository that exists on the planet. I'm sure that the people that are listening on this call can probably rattle off at least 5 other open repositories that people are putting together. The challenge is actually keeping these maintained and keeping them updated and getting the word out there that they exist so that people start using them. So you have these little collection of resources, but the purpose of a ecosystem or a collaborative is to actually start regular meetings and collaborations and conversations around this stuff to say, how can we translate this whole mess of resources into a tangible service? How can we take Google's Teachable Machine and start converting it into an activity for K through 12? how can we use Google's teachable machine and reach older adults? How can we actually translate this into a service? And you can also use AI to speed up the design and development of an actual service. So you can say, take Google's teachable machine and build a agenda for a 2-hour long workshop that will introduce these skills. And then if you use a tool like Perplexity, it'll just spit it out. So you can say, teachable machine. Here's Google's teachable machine. Oh, let's just say a 6th grade class. So the better you can build a prompt in AI, means that the more information you know about the actual topic you're trying to request. So if you say, if you just tell it this, it'll spit out something like this. And I'm gonna opt out of their little cookies. So it'll actually break it down into buckets, into timed buckets, which is, if you've ever put together a workshop agenda, this is like a baseline of the bucketing and description and goals of what this will actually look like. And it will give a recommended activity and a classroom and like a discussion prompt and all this different stuff. But the more you know about the topic, the more you can customize it. You can say update to include a section on AI ethics and how AI should and should not be used. And then it'll update it. So it's something like this that can help speed up the way that, and now you can see that it popped in this new one. So this is kind of a way that you can speed up the design and development of your workshop agendas, because this is actually what takes the longest. So if you don't have a lot of time yourself to be able to do this, using this as a draft and then updating and customizing it is incredibly effective. So you can pull from sources like this and then learn how to build the prompts to be able to translate it into an actual service. And this is what I teach in my digital literacy AI automation sessions. And this is what I demoed in one of my, probably more than one of my sessions. But it's stuff like this that libraries are starting to adapt to, is how can we actually use this as a tool? And how can we use this to make our job faster, better, easier? And for tools like Perplexity also link over to source information so you can vet it out and make sure that it's actually pulling the accurate information. And so we can use this as a way to build our own AI literacy as librarians, so that we know how to use this in our own jobs, and then how to help people access these tools, so that you can even build a workshop that shows people how to use perplexity.ai in their home life, in their everything, and then start introducing ways to vet out the information, because Perplexity links over to the source information, but Claude does not. So you can pop in the same exact thing to Claude, and it won't always necessarily link over to that source information. So you're basically just winging it. And so that's when I put together this AI automation workflow. And there's all these different ways that libraries can use it, even for website accessibility. And you can use it for, most people don't think about the reading level of their website, but most publicly accessible websites should be about at a 5th grade reading level. So if you have a public library, it should be at about a 5th grade reading level, but how in the world are we supposed to know what reading level we're writing at? So there's now a reading leveler that's AI generated that will be able to take whatever you wrote and convert it into the correct reading level, the correct reading level. So there's all these different ways that you can use AI now. And some of the other sessions in the track, they dug deeper into these specific methods and these specific tools and these specific ways that you can be doing all this stuff. So you can also go into the track itself and dig deeper into more of these different examples and just go, I'd recommend actually just going through the AI tracks, like track A on Tuesday and basically track A on pretty much every day was all AI all the time. But you can start getting a feel for the specific ways that AI is actually being used. And a good chunk of these were just about building AI literacy and how libraries can start building policies. Because if we're going to be giving access to AI tools like Perplexity, we also have to update our makerspace policies to be able to educate people about how they should be labeling the products that they generate in the library using these tools and then post on their Etsy website. Because if they generate something using AI and don't label it in Etsy and are not going according to their guidelines, then if that person gets in trouble, we don't want it to blow back on the library. And we want to be able to give the right education sources to say, if you generate something with AI, it should actually be labeled if you are trying to resell it. And then pull open the different guidelines and recommended platforms, because Etsy also has their own AI guidelines. So we're still kind of, as libraries are starting to introduce more of these tools and provide access to Teachable Machine, provide access to Perplexity, to Claude Code, we also need to let people know that they can't blindly trust what comes out of these tools. And they can't blindly trust, they have to be able to understand and evaluate the information that's spit out by these tools. For example, when I was just driving back from, I went on vacation in Wisconsin the other day, and I was supposed to be driving back between there and here. And my mom went to Google and she asked, "Are there going to be tornadoes in Wisconsin on this day?" And AI said, "Yes, yes, there will." And then I had just looked at the local weather station, and it was supposed to be clear and sunny on the day that I was driving. And she had just Googled that, and the AI summary said, "Nope, there's tornadoes." And I'm like, "No, no, there's not." And she
That's
was
a perfect reason why to not use AI at all.
yeah. And so what had happened was, AI builds summary information based on articles, but they have like a training, like, okay, this is probably a different session, but it's AI was using outdated information. It was summarizing old articles that had come out weeks ago, and or it could have been even coming out almost a year ago. So AI just summarized the resources that it had immediately available to it, and it said that there was a high likelihood that there would have been tornadoes. But we all know that weather changes. So as the day actually got closer, the weather changed. So when I checked the local weather forecast, that storm system had moved down by Texas. And there were tornadoes in Texas, like around Texas that day, but not in Wisconsin. So she was wigging out over nothing. So this is one of the AI literacy things that my mom just got a crash course in. But if I didn't know the background information about how AI works, I would not have been able to explain it to her how and why that happened. So our libraries need to be able to evaluate the output. And when people go to Google, when our patrons go over to Google and it spits out that AI summary and it gives a tech tutorial that's entirely wrong or outdated, or it gives weather information and tells them there's going to be a tornado today, but there's not. We need to be able to give them the right information and tell them why that happened and tell them what to look for instead. So that's probably a different session that needs to happen. But that was one of the trends that went through that said, how can we prepare our library staff for this, and how can we prepare our communities for this, because AI is going to keep telling people that
incorrect information, and it's
Yeah.
dangerous.
Yeah.
It's going to be it's dangerous to people. Yeah, it's wrong. Should not be using it. Yep.
Yeah. But so, and when you use it, it should be used in the right way, and it should be used with what they call the human in the loop. So people need to evaluate the output, because if libraries ignore AI, then we're going to fall behind.
Yeah, this is something that people are talking about this, that you got to teach people how AI works and how you should use it. And I have a real it confuses me. I don't know how to describe it, but this is something that has existed since doing research on anything has existed. When before we called it AI, you just went and you Googled it and you got results, and you had to use your brain and your actual, you had to look at this and say, okay, are these, where do these come from? It's the critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
Where does this come from? Who is, which website is providing this? Are they biased in some way? Is it a satire website? All these different things. So it's just, looking at the results you get and then saying, okay, which one of these is the correct information, which is the fake information. What am I really looking for my own research? I'm not looking for fun anecdotes about my research topic. I need something that is from like a medical journal, things like that. You have to decide, this is something we've been teaching forever, since doing research has existed, whether it was looking at books in the catalog, deciding, oh yes, this is the right book, but this one isn't, even though they both came up in my search results, to you Googled it. Well, that first website is actually just someone trying to sell you stuff. It's not the actual, weather channel that has the weather and the current radar type thing. It's, it's no different. It's just something else now that pops up. We were already trying to teach them this stuff, and now suddenly, for some reason, people are having this like epiphany of, we have to teach them. No, we've already been doing this. It's just called something different now. You got to still teach them the same skills.
What sucks is that the method and the technique for evaluating the information, I feel like, is pretty much the same.
Yeah.
But what
take everything with a grain of salt that you see anywhere on the internet. AI is not magically, and as we've all heard from many stories like yours and other ones, it is not magically know everything. It's actually more often the opposite. You hear the stories about how it's giving bad information and wrong information.
And the problem is,
but when you're trying to use it, it's for artwork and stuff, don't ever use it for art. That's stealing other people's art. But for things that you're talking about, like, tell me how I can do an agenda, that's something totally different. That's not, it's a different use of it. Yeah.
But I mean, that's just speeding up the research process too. And if you use the right tool that will be able to cite its sources so that you can track it back, and you actually do the legwork to check it back.
Which you should always be doing when you're doing any sort of research. Yes. Find out where this came from. Yeah, absolutely.
Now the problem is, the other example I'll use is that my dad and I were sitting in the living room, and I set him up with Alexa. So if you ask Alexa a question, she just spits out an answer. So unless you actually pull out your phone or pull out a separate device to be able to verify that information, people blindly trust the answer that Alexa spits out.
Yeah.
Because you don't have, like, if you're on the computer or if you're reading a physical book, you have, like, it's easier to be able to go say, okay, let me just real quick double check that and make sure that there's at least a few sources that say that.
Yeah.
But if you're driving or if you're just sitting in the living room and you ask Alexa something, it's too easy to just accept the answer. And this is like a new shiny magical technology that you say, oh, this must be right. Like Alexa knows everything. Every time I ask her a trivia question about which actor was just in this movie, she knows all. But it's not that in some cases people know how to actually go through and review and double check the information. The problem is that people are lazy and they trust AI too much. So until they get bitten by AI, they're not going to have that prompt that says, I need to actually double check this information. So it's not that the evaluation techniques have changed. It's that the way that we're interacting with the technology and the accidental level of trust has changed. We built the trust in Google, and we say Google's really good at evaluating information, pulling the right sources. Everyone goes to Google as a trusted brand. So now when Google introduced the new AI summary, people trusted the AI summary, and they shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Because they trust Google, they trusted AI. Should they have trusted Google in the first place? No, they probably should have dug a little bit better, but that's another thing.
We do have a comment someone says, which I think is something you mentioned too, that AI is different in kind because you can not only have to skeptically analyze the results, but the tool itself.
Yeah.
Like I think you were saying the ones that do or don't actually cite their sources. And this person says generative AI is excellent for certain kinds of research and terrible for others. And it's not always clear which is which simply by analyzing the results. You have to say, okay, which tool told me this? Which one did I use? Yeah.
And is that tool loaded with biased information? Like they're building AI historical figures right now, but if you only load it from source information that was written by, like if you're writing a AI historical figure about Martin Luther King, where did you pull that source information from? Was it written only by white people? Was it written only by black people? Was it written in a certain time period? How much did we know about him at that time that the source information was written? And did the person who gathered this information like MLK or did they hate him? And is this information biased? So even though a tool was generated, can we trust it? But because the AI tool is designed to be conversational and to be mimicking the flow of an actual human conversation, how often when you're talking to an actual human, whether in chat or in person, how often you're going to say, wait, hold up, let me double check this. The computer's mimicking that flow to be able to make you think it's evoking emotion and being able to mimic that flow. So if you don't pause, wait, stop, reevaluate during that human conversation or a chat, you're not going to do it with AI either. The new Alexa Plus is also conversation based, so she'll add in like little tidbits and sound like a little fun little human. I had to change the voice on the one in my room, my dad's, because the voice he chose is like the perky cheerleader, and I was going to stab her. Like,
I can't listen to her voice anymore.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's make sure. I want to make sure you get through all of your other things you want to share with us. So, what other?
So, okay, so we talked more or less about how these different collaborations and partnerships are coming up. We talked about how here in Nebraska and other states that's already been happening to solve things like the access to catalog, cheaper rates, learning communities, and all this different stuff. Now there's about 1,000,001 different learning communities going on with AI. So if your state is building a learning community around AI, consider working with other states too. so that we're not all doing the same thing and doing the same legwork and doing the same everything when we don't actually have to be. And so this is one thing that I'm looking at for more of the emerging tech side, more of the AI does not operate alone. It also operates alongside data science and alongside virtual reality, augmented reality, Internet of Things, all this different stuff. So when we're learning artificial intelligence, we're also going to wind up learning those other technologies because AI is baked into robotics. It's baked into the Internet of Things is like Alexa is an example of Internet of Things. And we're all trying to tackle way too much stuff, but we're not always talking to each other. So we'll see how this shapes out. I'm not the first one, and I also won't be the last one to try to get all the ducks in a row to start working together. Others have failed. Maybe I'll fail too, but we'll see. And so we all know how people have already been working together. The ecosystem style and science of ecosystems is just changing. So we'll skip past that. And I already talked a good chunk about the AI automation tools. I linked over to the slide deck that I pulled up before, and I touched on how people are writing AI policies. There is now a new AI group that is running through the Public Library Association under the umbrella of ALA that is talking about how all these groups can start working together to introduce AI, build AI literacy in libraries, and start building a shared resource repository. I know Nick Tansey is on that group. I think it's being led by Brandy. I think her last name is Scardilli, but don't quote me on it. But if you look at the AI group, the AI task force under PLA, they are a big one that's starting to lead the charge in all the everything there. And they'll be looking more at the AI policy side and the building AI literacy. And the other one is there is a state agency group that is working on AI at the state level. And that is, people need to stop coming up with a new acronym for everything. It's not Slack. It's, oh, dang it. I'll look it up. The ALA group also knows about that group too, and they worked with them. So if you connect with the PLA group for the AI task force, they'll also know about the state level group because they also work with ALA some. So let me jump over into how this means that we need to change the way that we're building groups, building collaboration, building at a leadership level. So this is, again, not new. People are still trying to learn how to lead in a hybrid world. So there's an IT level of this and there's a leadership level of this. So cybersecurity practices are updating so that they're trying to lock down so that more people can only access certain resources from the office. For example, in the Library Commission, I found out that our timesheet system can now only be accessed if I go log into it remote or if I am actually physically in the office. I tried logging into it when I was on vacation, and then I tried logging into it when I was at a conference offsite. I didn't have my remote login set up on my VPN connection set up on my laptop. I only had it on my desktop, so I wasn't able to do my timesheet. And I'm like, okay, people are not always in the office.
Yeah.
People go to workshops, they go on vacation, stuff happens. So we need to figure out a tech system and a management leadership system that adapts to a hybrid world. Because things happen outside the office. And so that's one example of it. I'm pretty sure I've talked about how people are working from home more and how that's becoming like a priority of things that people are actually looking for in the workplace, just because flexibility and times are changing. But that's, again, not a new trend. That's been around forever, especially since in the days after COVID. But the next one is, in order to accommodate more of an ecosystem-centered world, more organizations are starting to translate from, I need to make decisions based on what will strengthen and improve my own organization, which is still important, but it's shifting more over to, how can I strengthen my own organizations and my immediate partner organizations? And how will the decisions that I'm making right now affect those partners positively or negatively? Which is not a question that was always asked in strategy meetings or in mission, building out mission statements previously. So this is something that is changing slowly but surely, but it is indeed getting there. Because one of the things that weakens ecosystems is when an organization operates only with and for itself, or it will only work with an ecosystem if they personally benefit in specific ways. And some of the goals of an organization need to change when they find out that other organizations are already doing a similar thing. And it also unfortunately happens that some services are actually duplicate and redundant when they find out that another group's already doing it. So when they find out that another organization's already doing job skill training, then the library might need to pivot and say, okay, we've been offering this job training and application support, but now that we know that these two other organizations do it and they've got it covered, maybe we need to look at doing something else.
Is there some different way we can do it or come at it from? Yeah.
Or, I mean,
That's
there's a
what
lot.
libraries are a lot do is, and we keep talking about libraries doing new services, but also we can just direct you to the right one that's already out there.
Yeah.
We don't have to reinvent it if someone else has already done a really good job at it.
Yep.
There might be something we could do different, but yeah.
And that's what I teach. Okay. Like, that's another thing I teach in the Tech Ready Nation thing is, how can we act as like a routing system to be able to get people to the right resources, which is another thing that libraries have already done forever and a day, is act as a routing system. But now the navigator terminology is in some cases getting more popular. So whatever, if we need to call it a navigator, then okay. But so then the next one is, technology and processes are changing more quickly, and people tend to be naturally resistant to change. So if we keep resisting technology and resisting change and resisting updates and resisting everything, that's what makes the library fall behind. And that's what makes the library lose value in the eye of the public. Because if they see industry changing, if they see things like Amazon coming in and Google coming in and doing things and adopting technology and all this different stuff, but then you have a creaky library that doesn't do it, then are people going to keep going to the library? So we have to it may be uncomfortable and it may be something that people don't want to do, but times are changing and technology is just going to move more quickly. It's not going to slow down anytime soon. So it's just something to think about. And then along with that technology change, there's also the innovation mindset. It is, how can we change the way our processes and how we approach things to be able to encourage innovation instead of kill it? And that is an entirely, like, there were a bunch of tracks on that. There were some I go to a lot of entrepreneurial events and I go to some workforce dev groups, and this innovation mindset is everywhere. It's, how do we cultivate and improve innovation processes instead of sliding it under the rug or just booting it out the door? And then the last one is, it's kind of a catch-all, I guess, because in a time of technology, we also have to understand that people are people, and people have human flaws, and there is not going to be a perfect human that you can design for any one position. So in all of this different change, just know that people are going to be messy. So I could have just said people are messy, but that sounds like a baby that just pooped a diaper. So I went with accepting humanity instead. So that is that in a nutshell. I'm a little bit over time, but if anyone has any questions, you can reach out. Or I am sitting here if you have any questions right now.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. All right. We're just making sure I got everything on the right screen here. Yes. Okay. All right. Yes. Thank you, Amanda. Yeah. If anyone does have any other questions or comments you want to share, do type into the question section. We are a little after 11 o'clock, but that's okay. We go long sometimes on the show, and that's fine. I always stick around as long as it takes for our presenters to get through what they're doing. And if you all have any questions or comments you want to share, but the whole show is always recorded. So you can always, if you need to duck out, that's fine. I don't see any comments or questions that came in just now. That's fine. I do want to recommend, and we kind of didn't really talk about that at the beginning, that attending Computers and Libraries Conference. I mean, you talk about different sessions to go to. We do. I do recommend. It's a great conference to go to. I used to go to it for years and years. It's in Arlington, Virginia. So as you said, Washington D.C. adjacent. Every year in the spring. If timing is right, you get to see the cherry blossoms blooming as well, depending on the time of year. But it's a great conference for anyone who's involved in computers and technology at your library. And here through the Library Commission, we usually do offer a discount for registration. So look for that a few months beforehand for us to announce when you might be able through us to get a discount. And if you're from a different state, check your state, see if they have a deal as well. So we do
Internet
offer
Librarian too.
Yeah, exactly. And another conference done by the same group, Information Today, is Internet Librarian, which is a virtual version of, I would kind of say, of Computers and Libraries, always done in the fall in October. That one, before pre-COVID, they were both in-person conferences on each coast. Computers and Libraries always in DC area, and the Internet Librarian in California.
It used to be in Monterey, but now
Monterey.
It's all virtual. Yep.
Yes, Monterey, California, and I've been to both. I always thought of it as kind of like, and a lot of sessions are repeated on each. We're repeated at each one, and I kind of always thought of it as you're splitting the country in half. If you're in the east side of the country, go to the Computers and Libraries. If you're on the west side, go to Internet Librarian. If you're in the middle, like us, go to both. Pick one. But when after COVID, when COVID started, they both went virtual, and now Internet Librarian is staying as an online virtual version, and the Computers and Libraries is the in-person. But there's different things at them, and we do give discounts to both, actually, registration to both of them. So definitely recommend, if you're interested, to look into attending both those. I like them myself because they are smaller as far as attendance. It is not 20,000 some odd people coming to ALA. It's a much smaller group, so it's feels, I don't know if cozier is the word, but I think it's not as overwhelming.
It ranges, I think, between about 6,000 and 10,000. So it depends on the year. I think it averages maybe right around the middle.
Yeah, and I think it's very, and it's good for any type of library. Yeah.
And they are accepting speaker proposals for Internet Librarian through May 4th. So
okay.
if you want to be a speaker, submit it through the portal.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions coming through, so I think I'll work on wrapping up. I'm going to figure out how to bring my screen back up here. Let's see. Let's move this over here. Wait. Share. Hey, look, it did it. Okay. Like I said, new interface, everything's a little different. All right, so I think we'll wrap it up for today's show. Thank you so much, Amanda, for sharing with us today. Amanda will be back on, as I said, usually it's the last Wednesday of the month. Our next scheduled one is May 27th. That's the last Wednesday in May. Topic to be determined. We'll see what we'll come up with for that one. Today's show has been recorded and will be available by the end of the day tomorrow. This is our link to all of our archive shows. So if you use whatever is your search engine of choice and type in NCompass Live, the name of our show, you'll find our main page. And then here's our link to our archives. Most recent one at the top of the page here. And it will have a link to this recording and also Amanda's slides, which she will send me that link soon. So we'll have those as well if you ever want to refer back to her slides. Everyone who attended today's show and registered for today's show get an email from me letting you know when the recording's ready for you to watch. We also push out into our social media. If you notice, we have linked to, we have a Facebook page for NCompass Live where we post about the show. Here's a reminder to log into today's show, meet our presenter, and then when recording is available, here's the one from last week's show. I post out here. So you can look on our Facebook. We also use the Library Commission's Instagram account, our own mailing lists. I put things out on my LinkedIn, anywhere and everywhere we can think of. So you'll see little notifications about the show. Here on our show archives, if you want to see if we've done a show on a particular topic of interest to you, you can do a search. You can search the full show archives or just the most recent 12 months. If you want something very current, that is because this is our full show archives. And I'm not sure if you can see the scroll bar here, but this goes back way back. It goes back to when NCompass Live first premiered, which was in January 2009, which means 2026 is our 18th year of the show. Wow, we're an adult, legally adult. And we have all of our show archives here. So do pay attention to the original broadcast date if you do watch any recordings. Everything has a date when it first happened. Some of the shows will be fine to watch, good resources, good information, stand the test of time, but some things will become old and outdated. Resources may change drastically. Links may be broken. Resources might no longer exist anymore. People may work at different places than when they presented for us, et cetera, et cetera. So just pay attention to are watching anything very old on here. But this is something libraries do. We keep things for historical purposes, and as long as we have somewhere to host all of our shows, which right now is the Library Commission's YouTube channel, we will always have them up there for you to watch. And as I said, I'm going to go to today's session I want to show. Amanda had mentioned the link to the Computers and Libraries page. I've got it right here in the show description, and that will carry over to when I use the same description for the archive. And this does go to the Bain Computers and Libraries page, which is already promoting next year's, if it gets up here, 2027, March 16th to 18th. Mark your calendar. Or look for Internet Librarian coming up in the fall, October something. Do I have that down? I don't know. It's usually sometime in October. I don't know the exact dates off the top of my head. Do you know, Amanda?
Oh, I can find out. I just submitted my session thing, but I should have looked at the actual day.
It's usually in October, though, yeah. Historically. And usually Amanda comes back and does a session on that for us as well. Internet Librarian highlights and what she saw there.
October 27th to the 29th.
Okay, last week of October. Okay. All right, then I'm going to make a notice right now. If anyone is paying attention, that means that while Pretty Sweet Tech is usually the last Wednesday of the month, I bet we won't be doing that on October 28th because Amanda will be at a conference. So
that is a good bet.
Yeah. Or be attending that. All right, so that wraps up for today's show. Next week, so here's our upcoming shows for the next couple of months. Thank you so much, Amanda. Sorry. Great resources here, good information. I hope everybody benefits from everything you bring back from the conferences that you attend. Next week on NCompass Live, I will be serving as both your host and your presenter. I am going to be talking about our public librarian accreditation process. The upcoming accreditation renewal process opens up July 1st every year, so that is coming up for 2026. So if you are a Nebraska public library, you can please do attend. If you are due for reaccreditation this year, you can check. There is a we will be reaching out to you, but there is on the website a list where you can see public library accreditation status. So you can look up your library. It goes by default by city. See if you are due when your accreditation expires. If it's in 2026, I'll be reaching out to you to renew. So if you are upcoming, this is definitely a session for you. It's a 1-hour quick short overview of just the process. It's good for anyone who just wants a refresher. If your library board needs to learn more about accreditation, I also do a full longer 3-hour workshop, which is the very in-depth one. And I've just scheduled those for the beginning of June. But your library board members, maybe your city administrator, other people in the community are interested in what you're doing, why you go through all of this process, what accreditation is all about. This is a shorter 1-hour session of just the very quick overview of it. That would definitely be something for them to show what the process is all about. And then for you as the library person doing the actual accreditation process, the 3-hour workshops to get the step-by-step, showing the application form, showing how everything works. So please do sign up for that. And as I said, I did just schedule the workshops, and I will be updating this. I just did it. Here's a link to today's view. This is a link right now to last year's recording. But if you go to our calendar and look at beginning of June, I've got 4 sessions scheduled. This is the 3-hour sessions, the longer ones. So if you do want to sign up for those, they are in the beginning of June. Otherwise, come to next week's show to just get a general overview of the process. And if you're not from Nebraska Library, please, you're welcome to attend as well and learn about how we do things here in Nebraska. All right, that wraps it up for today. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you so much, Amanda. We'll see you next month, and we'll hopefully see some of you on a future episode of NCompass Live. Bye-bye.